Ian McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to follow the mildly tanned member for Napier in this afternoon's debate, and I'd have to say that I got 3 minutes of sun on Sunday, the only 3 we've had in the Rangitikei this month, and I got sunburned. But anyway, I want to get on to a couple of other issues, Mr Speaker. This afternoon I had 47 very senior members of my electorate in Parliament. You can imagine their disappointment when they arrived here and found the Prime Minister sitting here for a whole hour and not being asked one question, the first time, I think, in my time in this House that's happened. They were disappointed. They were disappointed, Mr Speaker. I just want to move on to a couple of other issues which I think are critically important, and that is the earthquake and the problems that those earthquakes have caused in Canterbury, particularly around Kaikoura and up into the Marlborough area. Mr Speaker, this country, under the leadership of this government and our Finance Minister Bill English, is very well prepared to deal with these kinds of problems. This is a different problem than the Christchurch earthquake created to some extent, because it has had a significant effect on a large piece of isolated rural New Zealand. And so there's a lot of challenges that creates that perhaps aren't created when those earthquakes happen in more populated areas. Of course, they have some significant problems when they do happen there as well. But I want to get on to the bill that went through the House yesterday and some of the legislation that's being passed in the next week or so with respect to this disaster, because I think the House is to be commended, and I think the opposition parties are to be commended on the way they've worked to make this legislation possible and to get it moving as quickly as we can. And one of the things we've learnt through a series of, I guess, floods, earthquakes and other things in our country throughout the years is that the quicker we can move on these things, the quicker the repairs happen and the quicker people feel better about their lives. These disasters are real and very testing, but almost inevitably the affected businesses and communities eventually come out of them in a much stronger state than they were when they went into them. And I think it's really important that this House works together, as it has been, to continue to support those. I think it's to be commended, and I think it's a great effort on behalf of everyone. Mr Speaker, this government's prudence under Finance Minister Bill English has allowed our country to show its resilience and give it a capacity to deal with whatever nature throws at us. And of course, we have one of the largest coastlines in New Zealand. We're one of the most exposed countries in New Zealand. We have geothermal fields underneath us. We have major fault lines that run through just about 3/4 of New Zealand. So we're always going to be at high risk from one sort of disaster or another, whether it's a flood or an earthquake or whatever type of storm. And it's really important that governments have the opportunity and the ability to deal with those issues. Mr Speaker, the recent dairy downturn pointed out how important it is to look after people in our industry. And I think when you look at the effect of the earthquake on places like Kaikoura, which is obviously a significant tourist destination for New Zealand, it's very important that we create the opportunity for them to look after the people that work for them. Because once you lose people out of an industry, it is very difficult to replace them. They go off, they get another job somewhere else, they even move out of areas. And it's most important, particularly when you've got a place as specific as Kaikoura, that deals with thousands and thousands of tourists every year, that we retain those people in that community. And so the government, I think, has moved very quickly to help with that, and it's to be commended on that. The other thing I want to talk briefly about is what I'd say is the unpredicted growth that's happened in New Zealand in the last few years, and clearly in 2008, the work that was done on our future projections was very different than what's going on now. The massive growth in jobs, the large growth in population in New Zealand, and consequently the large growth in our economy has meant the future looks very different now than it did in those early days. And so, Mr Speaker, while we might criticise some things that go on, we might criticise the people we need, this country has changed dramatically, and I think it's really important that we recognise that as we go along. The next thing I want to talk briefly about is our international relationships. The Prime Minister, the former and current Trade Minister, Minister McCulley, and a number of other senior Cabinet Ministers are all very well respected around the world, enable us to punch well above our weight. And I think that's very special. It's most important for New Zealand, given that we're a trading nation, that we have great relationships around the world and that we enable our industries to work very closely with those countries. I think our political leadership in New Zealand, and I think it covers the Parliament to some extent as well, is hugely positive for us, and our relationships around the world are most important to us. Mr. Speaker, the government has increased the health spend to record levels. It's worked through Minister Tolley to deal with some of the challenges of SIFs, and we're doing very well, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.